Let's do it in English then. Good morning, my friends. Let me tell you something about me. This is my world. My world consists of three my best works. It is Gazeta Wyborcza. It's a Polish newspaper where I work for. It's my son Adam, who is 5 years old, and my daughter Maria, who was just born 6 weeks ago. I work for Gazeta Wyborcza, that is the first independent daily newspaper in Poland. It was launched just 25 years ago, just a month before the first free elections in Poland. And since then, she became the sort of a fundamental media source, an information source for Polish democracy. And on the picture here, you don't see Moscow, as Warsaw in fact, and this strange building in the middle is the present from Stalin to Polish communists, built in the 50s, and all the rest was built in the last 25 years. Gazeta is no longer just a newspaper published in print and sold in newsstands. It's the internet operation. In fact, we reach many more readers in the digital sphere than we do in newsstands. Our circulation at the moment is about 200,000 copies. But on the internet, every month we reach about 12 million people in a country of 38 million inhabitants. And my company is no longer just a newspaper publisher and internet provider. We also have some cinemas, we started a TV station, we have several networks of radio, we publish magazines, we even bought some cinemas and became the leading producer of popcorn in Poland. Don't laugh about it because it's a very good business. In popcorn you've got a profit margin of 95%. And I started my career at Gazeta some 18 years ago, and I was a journalist in one of the smallest offices in southwestern corner of Poland, near the city called Wrocław, where I was born. And since then, I raced through all the ranks in the national desk, local desks, business desk. I became the vice president of the Agora Foundation and the head of editorial development for Gazeta. And since my daughter was born, I'm staying at home with my wife and my kids, and I study online on several universities. I'm trying to learn some new methods of work, especially in the Silicon Valley, that we can introduce back to our company and Polish industries. And I travel around the world because I'm a board member of one of the leading media associations for news media. It's called the International News Media Association, with the headquarters in Dallas in the United States. It's an association of about 7,000 news executives all over the world. I'm happy to be here on the 25th anniversary of Polish freedom, because many things changed since then in Poland, but it's very important also for the media sphere. It was the birth of our newspaper, it was the first partly free election, the choice of the first non-communist prime minister. These were 25 years of prosperity, economical prosperity, and security for us. And especially since we joined the European Union, you can travel to Poland and you can simply see for yourself how the country has improved. It doesn't mean that we solved all our issues. In fact, we have many more. We see the rise of the nationalism in Poland. We see the rise of Catholic fundamentalism in Poland. So there is harder to fight for tolerance in Poland nowadays than it used to be like 10 years ago. We see that many young people who graduate from universities have very hard start because it's difficult to get a proper job and to earn enough money to be able to buy an apartment, to get a mortgage, and in fact start a family. And we know that majority of Polish people have big problems with access to the proper healthcare. It's because long queues, if you are waiting for an operation and you are waiting for a diagnosis, you have to wait. Even if you have a cancer, you have to wait, maybe months, just for a diagnosis. What about the treatment? You may die before the treatment is provided. This is the problems that we still face in Poland. So this year, we celebrated our 25 years of freedom, and we, Gazeta, organized a poll, a survey among our readers to choose the men of freedom, and we gave them awards. You know, you see some guys here. It's a guy who organizes the biggest charity in Poland, Wielka Orkiestra Świątecznej Pomocy. Once a year, they gather all the people in Poland, in fact, to donate some small amounts of money to buy some equipment to Polish hospitals to save lives of young kids. There is a guy who is a Polish sportsman and a ski jumper that gave us hope about, Polish sports after years of misery and shame. There is a lady who started a company building buses. These buses drive people all over Europe. In fact, it's not very popular in Poland, it's popular outside of Poland. And the doctor who invented a new method of curing deaf people. So when we celebrated our Men of Freedom, we learned that you were mourning yours. We were following news from Maidan in Kiev and in other cities. We had many pages in the newspaper, many live coverage on the internet. We were listening to our correspondents in Maidan, in Crimea, in east of Ukraine. And we felt that despite all the job, all the reporting that we do, we need to do something more, because we have to do something with the emotions we have towards your fight. And our journalists started simply to take pictures of themselves together with a simple slogan, My z wami. And we posted them on Facebook and other social media networks. And very quickly, our readers responded and shared the same emotions. And in a moment, a miracle happened. We got good feelings back from Ukraine, from ordinary Ukrainians standing during the wintertime on Maidan. Then we felt that maybe we should publish a newspaper for Ukrainians just to tell them, our story, our views on the story, what Europe is thinking about your fight, what we are thinking about your fight. We published a newspaper in Ukrainian. We distributed it all over Poland. There is a lot of Ukrainians living in Poland nowadays. And we delivered some copies to Ukraine too. It was seen at Maidan. You can see this on the picture taken by my friend from Kiev. And the last page of this supplement was in fact a political poster that people started to use as a sort of a flag or a political statement, My z wami. Some NGOs has contacted us and told us, okay, we need to do something. We need to gather the people with these posters. And we made a big event in Warsaw. Around 3,000 people came, despite it was like -15 that night, to show our support to Ukrainian fighters. And by the way, I was there too. And artists joined the cause, and they started to create pieces of art like this one that we started to sell on auctions and donate money for victims from Maidan. We felt we need to do something more. We have a responsibility, and our editor-in-chief wrote an open letter to European leaders that were about to meet and told them that they need to stand up to Putin's Russia. We called our friends all over Europe in other newspapers. We published it all in Le Monde in France, in El País in Spain, in Corriere della Sera in Italy, in Die Welt in Germany. We published, all the newspapers published it before the meeting. And the meeting, they decided to issue much stricter sanctions than before against Russia. I don't know whether letters work anymore in this world of Twitter, but maybe it changed the atmosphere. Maybe we hope it helped to change some people's minds. Putin responded with a punishment to Europeans for the sanctions, and he banned import of European food, including Polish apples. We were thinking, what do we do with all these apples? We didn't know, in fact, we didn't realize that 80% of Polish apples were in fact sold to Russia. So we made a claim that we should eat them alone. And we organized a campaign together with other journalists, Eat Apples, Spite Putin. These are pictures of our readers trying to eat these apples. And Polish media are very divided, but in fact when we talk about Ukraine, we are very much cooperating with each other. Just next week, you can expect journalists from all Polish media, right-wing and left-wing, running together from Warsaw to Kiev to show the support to Maidan and protest against the war. And there will be some Ukrainians running too, and some journalists from Slovakia, from Czech, from Lithuania, from other countries in Europe. When people ask me, what makes Gazeta the Gazeta? It's a hard question because I don't know, was it the journalism that I was telling you about? Was it, I don't know, political activism? What was it? Let me give you another example from my own life. This is my son Adam when he was 2 years old. He learned how to use an iPad when he was a year and a half. And he simply started to use it. He started to use two functions of iPad very quickly. One is on YouTube. One is related, so he could find similar videos to the one that he watched, and history, to go for the videos that he watched previously. And you can see it on the video. Decision.
Un movimiento sensual, un movimiento muy sexy, un movimiento muy sexy. Y aquí se viene azul azul con este baile que es una bomba. Para bailar esto es una bomba, para gozar esto es una.
Speak. How will they fit to the regular classroom of a Polish school? And I wanted to check it, and because I'm an editor at a newspaper, I can force other people to do it for me. So I forced these guys in their 40s to go back to the elementary school, to spend there a week, to attend all the classes, to pass the exams, to answer to teachers' questions, to do homeworks, to try to compare modern Polish classroom and school to the thing that they remember from the 70s or 80s. And you can imagine what we have learned. Did the time stop here? That's exactly the reality. So according to our surveys, 92% of Polish schools keep computers behind bars, closed in the computer science rooms. You cannot use computers during breaks, you cannot use computers during lessons of mathematics, biology, geography. Computers are closed, 99% of families that have kids at schools have computers at home and internet access. So, in fact, there is a culture clash going. 73% of teachers never mentioned internet during their lessons. It doesn't exist simply when we talk about education for these people. So they probably didn't realize that according to our research, almost 50% of pupils do most of their homeworks online. So most of their homeworks are simply copied from Wikipedia and other sites like Ściąga in Polish. And there are many sites where you can get all the answers to all the assignments in school guides, in school textbooks. And it's 45 that do it for most, because 70% say they do it very often. So, what are the challenges of Polish teachers? We cooperated with some psychologists to go deep into the issue, to understand the challenges of Polish teachers. And we found out that it's a problem of bad training. That they all were trained in using computers, so they were taught how to use Excel. They had a course, 2 weeks, how to use Excel, they forgot it, it was many years ago, no problem. They get no support, so if anything goes wrong during the lesson with a computer, it's a problem of a teacher. They don't any help, any guidance, any role. They don't know any role models, any teachers who can tell them how I can do it. Let's don't just talk about Amazon jungle, let's see it on YouTube. And they are very afraid of losing face. All these kids, they know everything on computers, so I cannot, I'm a serious person, I cannot look as a stupid one when I don't know something about the computer. And in general, teachers, Polish teachers tend to be a bit frustrated. They always believe that they should earn more, and they work so hard, 22 hours per week, they cannot really do anything more than they are doing right now. So during our expedition to schools, we found this guy. He's a biology teacher from a small city. And we decided, and he's very innovative, he doesn't have computers on every desk in the classroom, but he knows how to use computers wisely. For example, his students learn about new issue online at homes, and then they come to the lesson just to do experiments. Very easy concept. Let's do homeworks in the classroom and let's do the lecture at homes. So we decided to give this guy the front page of Gazeta. Let him declare the end of the troll cage and let him call for the change in the Polish educational system. He did that. Let's own the topic. Why do we have 4 journalists working on Polish government and only and the ruling party in political section, and only 1 journalist working on education? Let's have 5 journalists working on education. Let's own the topic. Let's go deep into the topic. Let's have exclusive stories. Let's have scoops. Let's have front page stories about the issue. Let's really change something in this country. Let's do investigative journalism. If Polish government is saying, oh, we are considering buying a laptop for every child to use it in the classroom. Let's go to Portugal. Let's send Polish teachers to Portugal to learn whether it really works. And by the way, they learned it's a complete bullshit. You can spend like 150 million euros and it's bullshit. It doesn't work. Kids don't bring it to school. Teachers don't use it. It doesn't work. And let's expose the lobbying of the book publishing industry that opposes digital textbooks. Let's do the investigative journalism that is not about the corruption, but is about a different type of a corruption that makes our schools poor and not modern. What about thinking that the journalist that is writing about education is not only a leader in the coverage, but also builds a sort of a community around the person, a community of teachers that are innovators, that could read her books about, different examples from all over Poland about teachers who are changing the classroom? What about meeting all these opinion leaders and innovators and talk together how to improve Polish educational system? What about inviting Polish ministries just to let them meet for the first time together and talk about education? This is the actual meeting of a Ministry of Polish Telecommunication, Education and Digitalization that met for the first time at our office to discuss just an issue of changes in the educational system and use of the new technologies in the classroom. They never met before, because it was always on the departmental level. Let's work together with teachers. Let's create a platform for them so they can crowdsource lesson scenarios. We are not teachers. We don't know how to change the school. We just, as parents, know that we want different school. So let's ask these innovators to talk with other teachers. Let's publish. Let them publish their lesson scenarios. Let them share. Let's create a database of new lessons models about mathematics, biology, geography, whatever. Let's provide new experiences to the classroom. Let's give the best schools an opportunity to have a live lesson with the First Lady that is telling them history of a Polish leader, Marshal Pilsudski. Let her guide them around the building of the presidential palace live on the internet to the smallest classroom in the smallest village. We can all do miracles with new technologies. And we can all change the educational system. This is exactly what love can change. After 3 years, 81% of 650,000 teachers in Poland are aware about our campaign. 20,000 teachers contributed to the database. They created their own lessons that use somewhat multimedia and change the way the lessons are organized. And 7,000 schools decided to become schools with class, how we call them, the schools that improve, and introduce new teaching methods. So it is not our achievement, it's their achievement. They did it. They created lessons, they shared it with each other. We just provided a platform and, and did a lot of noise about it. And, the next year we are trying to do something more. I'm just studying the design thinking. It's a method used in the Silicon Valley by Apple, Google, and all the other giants to create new products and services. Let's teach it in the schools, at schools. Why don't we teach our kids to create new iPhones in the future? We can do it. It's so easy. You can just learn it, and you can teach other teachers, and these teachers can teach other teachers, and then the whole schools in Poland can teach creativity and design thinking our kids. Is it journalism? I don't know, really, but I don't think I care. If I would wait for the Ministry of Education to improve Polish educational system before my son becomes 5 and goes to the 0 class at school, I would never get it. So why don't we just do it for ourselves, together with the Ministry of Education, together with teachers? Why don't we inspire ourselves to improve our country quicker? I think this is part of the success of Gazeta Wyborcza, and this is part of the, how we call, a backbone of our view on journalism. Of course, it always starts with a good story, like these guys spending time in the classroom and blogging about it live. It starts with hidden stories, like violence at Catholic orphanages in Poland, with nuns beating kids, exposing this kind of behavior, and starting criminal investigations after our publications. It's about telling stories of people that are unheard. Let about send journalists to do the worst paid jobs in Poland. Let them clean, the offices in the highest skyscrapers of Warsaw. Let them work in factories of sweets, in some southern cities of Poland. Let them do all the shitty jobs the world knows, and let them write about it. Let them write how we treat people that are poor. Maybe we can change something about it. Maybe we can introduce a new law about, for example, a minimum wage for that kind of people, because they cannot fight for themselves. People want news now and live, so maybe the traditional article is no longer valid. Maybe the articles should look like this one. This is a real article about a press conference about what they found about the plane crash with the Polish president. So it consists of short bites, like from Facebook or from Twitter. You can make comments upon each piece of information. It has a live video stream coming from the conference. It's a completely different kind of an article, but it works. It's informative. It's happening live. You can do it from the soccer match. You can do it from a press conference. You can do it from riots. But of course, I'm not saying that long Good written, well-written narratives don't work. In fact, this is the longest article ever that we published in our newspaper. It was 14 pages of A3 format. So you can imagine, it was a long one. We decided to publish it. It's an article of a Russian intellectual, Yuri Afanasyev. It tells you, it explains you why Russia is like it is today. If you want to understand Russia, if you want to understand Putin, you have to read this article. This is how we advertise it on television, and we sold many more copies. So when you hear that people want just to read all these tweets, yes, maybe that's true, but they also are ready to read something remarkable when they find it really interesting and important. It doesn't mean that, you know, one-liners are not interesting. This is a new experiment. We experiment with comments that sound like daily news haiku. It's a haiku of a Polish writer, and after, you know, another fight in the parliament, he writes, Poles is the only nation in the world that can attack itself and lose. Journalism is no longer about a monologue to people, it's also about a dialogue, it's about listening to others. When we started a discussion about the future of our cities, we got 70,000 letters. When you invite people to tell you what they think, they answer. It's that simple. But you need to invite them. And you need to believe that these answers are important to you. So you need to give them a proper space. I told you, we gave the front page to this teacher because we believed his message is important. If you put letters from readers on the page number, I don't know, 16 in the lower part of the newspaper, you will never get many letters. But when you give teachers the front page, they will write you, I tell you. But it's also about listening every day. I remember we had this campaign with these British students coming to Poland, and I had to write a comment that was summarizing what we learned over these 2 weeks with them. But the problem was that the night before, we had a farewell party. And as you can imagine, it was a long party. It was a heavy party. It was 5 p.m. the next day, it was Sunday. I was dying from a hangover, and still I had to write a front page commentary on the issue. So what could I do? I simply asked readers to help me. I couldn't imagine anything. I told them, guys, I'm on a deadline. I need to write a commentary. What have you learned? What have you learned from this campaign? And immediately, in 15 minutes, I got 150 answers and tips, so I could write my article, and nobody knew about my hangover, so please keep it in secret. It's important that you stay the rebel after the revolution, I believe, and this is what our newspaper is good at. So when we believe in something like we oppose the government that wants to build a highway through the natural reserve and kill all the animals and rare plants living there. And our journalist, that is an expert, tells us it is a complete bullshit because they could simply pay $1 million more and they could change the route of the highway. And it's just, you know, the most stupid idea they ever done. We allowed them to write on the front page that we are going to start a protest against it. And this protest led 150,000 people to sign a letter to Polish president to stop this construction. And because it was during the rule of the Kaczynski twins, they didn't listen to us. They called us eco-terrorists. So it ended with 150 people staying actually in the forest and protecting the forest from the bulldozers. We won this fight because we cooperated with Greenpeace that convinced the European Commission to tell our government that they will withdraw the money if they continue. It's about things like leading the change. You know, the Polish women in the 90s, when they were giving birth, they felt like in the railway station because you gave birth in a huge room of like 20, 30 women giving birth at the same time. Of course, the fathers couldn't attend, you know, the birth. Of course, the kids were just taken away from mothers immediately after the birth, and they were kept in another room. So the mother could just go there and ask if she can see the baby for a moment and just do some breastfeeding. And we decided that we need to, that we can talk with experts how it should be done. What should be the standards for the healthcare. And then let's ask readers, mothers who really gave birth, to review their experience against these standards, and let's publish it. And it started with 2,000 letters from mothers, and it finished with 40,000 reviews about 300 hospitals. So we could provide the best ever, find the business model, and build healthy businesses. This is the only way to do all this stuff. And it's about focus on effectiveness and using modern technologies and looking for innovative processes like this design thinking that I was talking about. And you can introduce it to launch a new supplement, a new website, change your classroom, change your city. So this is what Gazeta is really about. I think it's about people who have dreams that they can live in a better place. And they have a sort of a belief that they need to do something about it. They inform to make better choices, but they also do something themselves. Thank you very much.
Дякуємо, Гжегоше.